Okay, let's talk about this red pill, blue pill concept. It came up in a video, and then sometime shortly after, although I still had it on the wall as a picture of thought and what I had thought about this. And whenever the meme hit, it was about something totally different and about a current topic that's going on. But yet at the same time, I was able to just glance over at that wall there and then go, oh, wow. And that happens quite often where I make connections. And I'll try to relay that to you a little bit in the video here talking about it. But I at one time even had this wrong when the Matrix had come out or whatever, and I'll go da da da, a red pill, and he goes, you no, you mean blue. And I'm like, oh, huh, okay. I thought of a lot of things about that. One strange one over here on the wall, I guess you'd think of, is that what if the red pill and the blue pill were actually the same ingredients inside, but it's just the gel coating cap on it, and you're delusional either way you go with it? Well, that fell apart because one of these pills here, and we're going to go with the blue one, and blue has a lot of connections to it. And this is not the blue pill that you take to get a boner. This is the blue pill of reality. The red pill is I want to live a delusion. Something that you actually, if you get into it at all, you know is not true, but you want to believe it so bad that you go with it. And there's a huge group of people that will be on your side, and so you'll feel comfortable. And this idea of religion and God being true or things like that, and the narrative, if you will, stays intact and it doesn't change. What's amazing about that is that the narrative has already changed and you've only been told the way that it is in a current scheme that we have going on. And one crazy thing about it that we've been able to realize in a modern day is that everybody that's doing this is pushing an agenda one way or the other. And so I looked at myself and I said, well, you're pushing an agenda too, but it's blue pill agenda. So da 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 da. And listen, if you feel that you can't eat a blue pill and have an experience that might just blue pill your whole life, maybe you ought not to. And it's strange for a creator like me to say maybe you ought not to watch my videos, but I don't want to tear anybody up emotional or anything or get to the point that they feel like they've lost their mind due to the fact that they've been eating red pills all their life, and then all of a sudden, bing, here shows up a red pill, whoopsie. But I feel like humanity has to live inside reality. And therefore, my quest since a young child has been for why? Why is this? Why is that? What's the truth about that? Because I found out that there were a lot of times I'd hear my parents and cousins and all these guys talking about how, oh, they found that out, that wasn't true, it was this, that, and the other. And I'm like, okay, so I guess that's the truth on it and not the narrative that they had. And later I had people all throughout my life still believing that narrative whenever I knew when I was a kid everybody knew that was a lie. But they kept eating this red pill over here. Look what that says there. That's a strange video coming up too. It's just a concept because the devil thing I've done videos on before, and that's all BS too. But if there's a God of the good side, there's got to be a God of the bad side, and the people and the gods of the underworld, which used to be deified somehow because they kept you for all eternity in your next state, which was a mythology people had derived in a way to tell you that you don't die when you die. but then everything else you see dies when it dies. And I don't know how many people don't just find a blue pill in their pocket all of a sudden whenever things like this get stated to people. But I understand the want and the belief and the fear of death and the whole thing. And it hit me so much harder whenever I had my parents pass away. It gets to be more real, and there's that moment whenever you realize, hold on, I've got my wife and my kids, they're about this age. When I started doing this blue pill life, I was about that age. And a full circle thing comes along, and then I realize, oh, hold on. Grandma and Granddad were alive then too. Then they passed away, and my parents went through another 20, 30 years, and then they went, oh, okay, so, wow. In a sense, it gives you a limited time to be able to find the truth and show it. My channel's really dedicated in a way to a lot of different things, but one is the exact truth of everything versus the narrative. Because I found quite often in school, not so much in science, but in almost every other facet, there were fallacies that were not true. Some of which I knew were not true at the time, a lot of which I learned later in life are not true. Some of them from that same school, but now I'm in a different grade and I come to find out, well, they had me believing it was kind of like this, but it's not really, is it? It happened more like that, and I can see the this in it, but it wasn't all about it, but they made it seem like that, or the teacher did, or so on. So it gives you an odd feeling of, okay, I'm going to have to rationalize this all out because a lot of people have an agenda in one way or another, and I'm going to have to sift through this to try to get the good stuff out, or the truth of it all. And there are thousands of little moments of truth in ancient history, and the way that everything happened, and the way that humanity formed, and so on. And I've shown that repeatedly. That's not exactly right. Humanity doesn't look like that evolution chart. In fact, even they're putting in a couple there that didn't lead to us at all, we know nowadays, and it's stated that we knew it back then too. And then some of the charts still contain things like Nebraska Man and Piltdown Man and so on, and it's like, what are y'all doing? You're trying to now go with a narrative and fit things in, and we already know they don't fit in, but you keep trying to put them in as if it exists. That's one simple blue pill there and one little concept, but you wouldn't believe how often that happens anymore. In fact, you've seen it 1,000 times or more in my videos if you've been watching for a while, where some narrative will say da 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 da, and then I'll like pause, and I'll explain a few things, and I'll probably mention a few other videos, so you'll be like, oh, aha, oh, so why do they keep doing this? Well, they don't want to think that, they don't want people to think this, apparently, because they've already seen the opposite. In fact, the reason they're giving this apologetic right now and forcing that idea out that we just talked about is they're trying to shun or dismiss another one. And if they mention it totally, which sometimes they do, and self-expose basically, and they go da 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 da, and you're like, oh, you're just trying to refute something else that might actually be true, and you're stating as a fact that it's not true because of X. Well, let's look at X. That's not what they say even in X. So you can't, just one step away. In fact, the source material alone doesn't say what you're trying to say that it says. How odd. That's just one thing that comes to mind, and I didn't clarify what it is. But this blue pill idea makes it to where a lot of the red pill chatting points are null and void. and have no truth within them. So to sit and try to have a conversation about it is moot. Yet, because so many people are taking this red pill, we end up having to rehash over it somehow. I don't know at what point most of you listening, some of you may be on a fence or so on like that. I've had a wide variety of people, and I only know that from what you say down in the comments, which I wish happened a little bit more. You notice I'll try to respond to almost everyone, and I probably shouldn't, but I'm trying to welcome you in some way if you haven't been around. I had a guy that happened to just a few weeks ago, or actually it's longer than that, it's back right at Christmas time, but had mentioned something and everything, and I was like, welcome, da-da-da, light your torch off mine, da-da-da, and he goes, no, I've been a member for a long time, I just don't type a lot, and I go, start doing it if you have a question, bro. Seriously. If you question anything, do that. It might be real important. It might be real important to me. It might be real important to all of us. It might be real important to a whole lot more people than the people who are even on this channel or have ever heard my voice. But maybe we should look into that. Or did I perhaps state it in a way that got you thinking this whenever I really meant that? But yeah, but no, like, it's not all hinged upon that. Sometimes when I rewatch my videos, like written in the stars and stuff, I'm going to be like, people are going to say that it all hinges on that. It's the reason I held it back for over 4 years. Made a couple of mentions to it, showed one point of it, then talked about a few times in other videos how I can show you this story going round and around the zodiac. I didn't want to get too much into it because I really felt like you were going to end up eating a handful of blue pills and you may never wake up and go overamped on it on that idea alone, and it's not alone. There's been the other 5.5 years worth of stuff showing you all kinds of other things that go into it. And it went into the Bible too. And it's what created it and the Gnosticness of it and everything too. And people want to separate that so bad because humanity grabbed onto that. But it was just another evolution in a concept that had a little more philosophy and things in it from the Greeks. But you'll actually find if you look at that in total, they got a lot of that from thoughts and conversations that were going on with Egypt, and we all know about that, but also Sumeria, and it's where they got the star chart and the concept and the zodiac comes from and everything. And people, until a modern time, they didn't know it. Until the 1950s and Ashurbanipal's library started being truly deciphered through and everything, and there are still tablets that people still haven't deciphered out. Or yet they might have looked at it a little bit and go, oh, this is just a copy of so-and-so, and put it in another box, but they didn't realize the second half of that's totally different than the other one. And it might say something neat. There's also boxes and boxes of shattered ones too that are just pieces that they ought to take grad students that have learned it all and go, okay, what is this? It's a piece of whatever, and then try to put it in a database and see if they can find the other pieces of it and so on. And part of that was taken to Penn State, and part of that was taken to a couple of other places, and one to Germany or whatever. So you might be able to get in touch with all these people and go, I think I have the other half of your tablet here. But it seems like there's this drastic blue pilling going on now. And it's going on now because of the narrative and the BS that's happening around you now that I don't usually refer to. It starts to get too personal to people. And really, I'm trying to clarify what happened throughout history and humanity that led us to this point here. I don't like certain epochs in it. Once we get close to the medieval ages and so on, I try to shun away from that because of what ended up happening out of that. or a real modern time because people get too butthurt on what's going on and things. And quite often, if you find something new they came out with and said something about it, if you've noticed, if you wait 2 or 3 weeks, all of a sudden, or less, or more, there's usually something out about it that would make you think that if you knew that at the time, you wouldn't have had for 3 weeks or whatever it is these other thoughts about this situation going on because you didn't know. And once you get that extra piece of puzzle in there, it all of a sudden changes. And so if I overreact to something that just happened in the news and so on too, and then I'm reading a narrative somebody's pushing, it may not actually be true. I'm going to have to look at a bunch of people to do it, and I don't really want to get into that because what's currently going on with humanity is pretty disgusting. It's a whole lot of pandering and everything, and there's just a bunch of wishy-washy stuff if you look at it, because there's the religion, the not religion, there's just all kinds of crazy things each people are trying to push as a narrative as far as the climate, the world's going to end in 8 years, and just all kinds of things that you would have to call crazy just a few years ago. But in a modern day, they don't want you to refer to that. They want you to eat a red pill and come with me on this journey of stupid where I'm going to freak out, and then later I'm going to act like, oh, I've played it off. It's the 2 weeks to bend the curve situation again. And once those Al Gore's date comes up, they go, oh, well, he was just a little off, and we had a few cold winters. And they go, yeah, you know what? Somebody professional got in there and just averaged that in, and they go, you know, we're actually going down just a little bit right now. But if we look in time, it goes up and down, up and down, up and down. And in fact, we're not in a warm period. In fact, over the last 10,000 years after we come out of the last ice age, we're not even at the top levels. The warmest it's ever been in the last 3,500 years was 3,500 years ago. The warmest we've been in the last 5,400 years was 5,400 years ago. There's all these spikes. You're gonna blame that on cow farts and all kinds of weird propellants and things like that and stuff that weren't even existing back then, because it was worse then. And I'm pretty sure that if they had the records that they had now and they watched as it was going up on each of those spikes, they would try to get you to believe, what if it kept going up? Well, if you had that knowledge, you'd be able to look just a few hundred of thousand years before and go, oh, it was worse than this back then, and here we are. In fact, there's this one point here with a cold spike going down, and we probably would have been like, oh no. In fact, that's the trend that's been happening. And in the 70s, when I was a kid, they go, we're about to do another ice age, and you look at the heartbeat of the way we've gone through it, and you go, time, everything, yeah, and oh, we're kind of taking this dip. And whenever I was a kid, we had a few bad winters, like in 1980 and so, back to back, and you start thinking, oh no, and all of a sudden, they're pushing this opposite total. Oh no, you know, oh, the ozone, we fixed that. We found out the 2-3 major contributors to that, and we found we didn't have to use that. We could use something else, and that's over with. When's the last time you heard about that? Or the paper that came out and said, oh, this happens all the time. And it wasn't even from radiocarbon stuff before, or any type of propellants or anything. This has gone through this a few times before. Like the atmosphere. Catastrophism, the idea that something bad happened in an area, like the flood of the Sumerians, that they rewrote off into an idea that the whole world got flooded somehow. Whenever the time that the only flood of the whole world happened was after another catastrophe, which may have been the origin point of the myth, carried on through time, and the Bible just has it wrongly dated because it's trying to date it off the Sumerians. Whenever we know there's Göbekli Tepe and all these other sites attached to it, and so much more, and cave art and everything else. Look, here's a fossil. Some people aren't able to ingest the blue pill because they so badly want the red pill to be the truth and not the blue one. Once you find out a few things, it's real hard to ingest another red pill to me, but some people need to go back into a fantasy world. Sadly, after 20 years of marriage, my wife became one of those people. In fact, while I was showing her blue pills, every once in a while, listen to me, I wasn't eating her alive with this stuff or trying to have fights with her over God or anything like that. I was showing her where that comes from and reality of what this all is. In a way, really breaking it all to her gently. And she was fine with it. Fine with it. Till just a couple of years ago, and she started getting real religious out of nowhere. And that was at the time that I had really laid off. I was making these videos and everything, but I had really laid off talking to her about anything like that. She cried one time, and I go, listen, if it's the truth makes you cry, maybe it fix you up and everything's okay, but I don't want to be the guy that ever makes you cry. I may show you other things, but I'm going to slack off this. And at that point, she got overly religious, had the kids coming up to the age we're doing so, and the next thing you know, I'm a bad man because I don't believe in Jesus. Oh, yeah. And so it ended up falling apart, and I can't stop it. And believe me, I could have spoke up, and at the time I thought I should have and everything, or shouldn't have. Looking back, I go, well, if I wanted to keep it together, I should have. But then again, if you understand that she was already fading anyhow, she didn't want to believe anything about the blue pill, even though 90% of it she couldn't even apologetic away or go, you're not sure of anything. And I go, well, this PhD and this other guy and this other guy and this other guy and this other guy that are all academics are saying the same thing. Oh, and here's a guy back in the 1800s that already was saying it. Here's the thing that, oh wait, they were saying it here too. I'm not pulling stuff out my butt. I'm showing you connections to things that people have been saying for a long time. You may think that this is all happening right now because you've been red pilling yourself all your life, and you've had some blue pills now, and somehow you want to go back to that childhood where you used to eat red pills as opposed to grown-up food. And I can understand that. It happened right in front of me, so I can understand it easily. But I wouldn't want anybody that had already found out the reality of anything to turn around and go back and totally shift on the idea and start pulling this SJW stuff of a modern day or anything like that. But it's not my choice. It's yours. Here's a choice in front of you, these pills. I recommend the blue one because everybody that's eating the red one are crazy-haired people out there. You'll find that there's a whole lot of Christian-y people and things like that that are into that pill over there. Although there are some atheists that are that way too, and so on too. And oh, by the way, the world and everything doesn't hinge on atheism, but they'd like to think that you do. Come on, eat the red pill. And it's like, well, if some of you aren't that religious, how much does that play in your life other than at Christmas and a few times and whenever that car almost hit you but didn't, and you go, phew, and then you want to praise some sky god thing that maybe made it happen. He was trying to control the whole world, and he goes, oh, but all right, you're okay. Go on. He's Superman. He's Spider-Man. He's running around. He's the whole Justice League, but it's not just one person. Oh, wait, it is. That's what they want you to believe, even though They show you in the Bible that there's 3 or 4 that are doing this type of thing, and they contradict each other. Therefore, they have to say, well, it means that. And when you find the triad and you pull it apart, you'll find out, oh, they're just basically rewriting themselves from the old Canaanite thing and then borrowing from this and that and the other over the Sumerians and some Egyptian stuff. And oh yeah, they put it right in the story and everything. Thing is when we look up the Egyptian stuff, that all happened, but what about the Bible stuff? No, there's never been nowhere near that number of people that ever did anything like that or left Egypt or did anything. Well, they want you to believe they're all slavers and doing all that. No, that's not really in effect either. In fact, they were disgusted with it. Yeah. So it wasn't that prominent. But who tried to get you to believe that it was? And what else were they trying to get you to believe? Take the red pill. Is that true? Take the blue. Can't believe the lighter went out already. Maybe just the flint. Let me grab another one. Well, one of these ought to work. There. Full of fluid still. And it was a blue lighter and it went out, and I had to use the yellow one. Now, which pill is that? Well, that could be something different if somebody made up some new bullshit that didn't go with red or blue. But I think we should stay in blue pill. If we're talking about blue pill being the reality of everything and the way that it worked out, the only way we're going to end up prospering long term, in my mind, is that we're at least basing all this on truth. If we start to make up lies about the way things happened or went down, it doesn't work out too well. I.e. Middle Ages and things like that happened and so on, and we're having the same thing roll around again now, where everybody's going, well, what's a woman? And da-da-da, and all this stuff, and it's just junk. Disgusting junk. You look at a group of birds and you go, they're not having to deal with this. It's like if you get smart enough, then you start saying stupid things. It's like Dunning-Kruger expands. That's not good either. Whenever there are people that damn well know that that shouldn't even people be talking about it, but they're so used to so much red pilly freaky stuff going on, they're like, I can't combat it. If I do, they'll try to cancel me for telling them the truth. That's probably the most disgusting statement that you could make nowadays, is that if you try to say the truth, these other people will try to cancel you because of feelings. Isn't it? Here's a blue pill. I'm desperately not trying to blow sunshine up your ass and make you believe things that aren't true. I'm trying to constantly show connections that really are true. Thought of it earlier, don't know if I spoke it, so I'm going to say this again. Hate it if I'm repeating myself in the video here. Had a guy a few years back, whenever I was just getting into this and not even showing deep layers of onions and throwing fireworks like crazy really at the point, but just trying to make a few scheme points so it would knock the ancient world and your history idea down to like this and be like, okay, now that we're here, and I pinpointed this off a Christmas video, now that we're here, we're going to start digging deep into everything you've ever heard about, and some that you may not have, but I'll try to educate you as we do it. And we've peeled open the rest of those onions and found out, you know, the whole reason for this nut is that if you crack it open, the stuff on the inside, that's the good shit. You got to get down a couple of layers. You don't really eat the heart of an onion or so on, but you get the idea from Shrek. I've been using that for a long time. I like it because the talking donkey that you never hear about in the Bible from Shrek. Where does it come from? Because there's all these mythological creatures going on here. So what's going on? Well, the talking donkey thing is the donkey of Baalim. Yeah, there's a story about that. But the whole thing starts with an idea that a woman grew from a rib and ate from a magic tree because a talking snake told her to. And people are like, what? You get deeper into it and you find out there's connections to dragons, and you find that talking wise snake was actually a walking serpent type creature. And God said at the end of that, you'll crawl on your belly all day. So after that point, whenever people see things in Enoch and they go, that's him, and that's not. No, that serpent was something different. Well, what was it? Sounds like a dragon to me. It's a wise, walking, talking serpent. Made a video recently about how, it's a 6-parter too, about descriptions of God. Here we go. But it goes on now. What's going on around everybody? Well, everybody's believing in dragons. Oh, they don't believe in dragons in the Bible. Dragons are real fervent in the Bible. And a lot of the Gnostic texts and the ones that were thrown out at the Council of Nicaea and things like that have mentions of things like that, and other mentions that they even knew at that time aren't going to work. But people were going with it. It was the common tropes. How they rewrit parts of the Iliad and the Odyssey and stuck it in the Bible, like, and this is what happened next, and you're like, you're mocking something from hundreds, thousands of years before now. Oh, well, they're mocking something from the Sumerians from over 1,000, 1,500 years before that, and in fact, the Sumerians are mimicking and mocking something they had before writing as stories. And how far does it go back? Actually, pretty far. Some of these mythologies are fairly new. Some of these mythologies are quite old. Some of these stories changed over time. But one thing that's been around a lot is that dragon thing, where that cattle and so on too, and they pinned that back. What was amazing about it is they pinned it back to over 10,000 years ago, and at the time the narrative was still they didn't start messing with cattle until like the Sumerians and and the people of Anatolia at about 3500 BC. Well, that's not true, because here's a domesticated cow at 6800 BC. Oh wait, and then next thing you know, oh well, hold on, it does fit the myth whenever it goes in agriculture. Of course, during my lifetime, we've changed the idea of when agriculture came about too. The Sumerians are giving all kinds of boons for things that happened that we find out were going on before then. Sure, it turned into a city and you still find remnants of it now, but if you dig deep enough in other places, you'll go, here it is before that. Like the Roman arch that's shown in a couple of different places in Sumeria that I showed in excavations. Here's one right here. Now, I think that predates Rome or anything like that, doesn't it? But it's called a Roman arch. In fact, here's this thing of Archimedes' screw and but here's a story on an ancient tablet that tells you they're using the screw device to bring water up to these ancient Babylonian gardens, the Hanging Gardens of Babylon, and these other things. And you go, well, that definitely predates that. But he was in a big library that had all kinds of older stuff, and so he might have found that, might have been able to transpose a language or that somebody else had put down and put two to two together. The idea they invented math and geometry and stuff, which geometry means knowing the size of the earth, we find goes back to the Sumerians, but way before that too, but in the Egyptians too, and they had a pretty good idea of it by measuring something as simple as the shadow on a stick at this point on earth, and walking all the way to the point that there is no shadow on the longest day of the year, and going, how much is that difference? And if I plot that on a ball, the earth is about this big around. And we're like, that's pretty good. But that wasn't new whenever it was found out too, because we find that it was already written about hundreds, many dynasties before that, and then hold on, it's in effect in the pyramids at the very earliest. Well, they just popped up like popcorn, and all of a sudden, boom, made pyramids. That's not the way it worked. Just like the Sumerian, just all of a sudden, poop, like popcorn, and they ended up coming up with their, no, that's not how it worked either. Sure, there were things that grew during that time, and knowledge grew, and finding concepts, but as far as we can go back in it, we find these things that people try to tell you are Pythagorean theorem, and it's like they're using it here. Well, here's pi, yeah, they're using it way back here. They try to get you to believe that the world was flat, or at least we thought it was, and then they were going to fall off the earth when they tried to find America and stuff like that. It's like they already had declamations around a globe in longitude and latitude and so on, and very well knew the size of the earth and that it was round all the way back here at Eratosthenes in Egypt, who we're talking about. But no, it comes back before that. When did they know that? When did they start telling you it was flat? Oh, that comes from the Bible, where they misconstrue the idea of four corners of the earth like an expression, and then somebody wrote in the fact that they had put it up on pillars, and that's what's keeping it floating, and we're all living in a snow globe. Well, it's kind of that way, but it's not flat. It's round, just like every other object. We keep thinking we're special. The world isn't what everything rotates around. We're in a galaxy way over here. Was there a God? A God of all gods like we think of? No, because he apparently never had any influence on us whatsoever. If something like that happened, it was probably from aliens. Much more reasonable once you get into this that that's what it could be, and we could be a cargo cult product. So again, I can't keep you taking blue pills. To some people, they've decided after eating the blue pill and having the experience, like having a experience with a drug use and it opening your mind and everything and stuff like that, where they decide I don't need any of the pills anymore. I'm good. I took a couple of the blue ones there, and now I'm good. I don't need to take anymore. That's a good stance too. Guess what? There's more knowledge. If you want to know it, I'm still putting it out thick. Been a little slow here lately, but I've had a lot happen in my life here and things like that too. And I've also decided to take a little vacation and so on, which I might talk about a little bit later on or down the road here. But I just wanted to have something about this blue pill effect, and then my place in this whole thing, and where we're at, and what we've learned. I think you can easily see that we've learned a whole lot this last year, and put things into context and where stories came from. Origins, which aren't really from nothing. They were taken from this other story that was so good and had those people for thousands of years. They decided they would throw that in their story. And we've been under that guise for a couple of thousand years now. I made the comment years ago that Jesus said he'd be with us till the end of an age, and that word is zodiacal. And wait, hold on, he was at the end of Aries. Sacrifice, there we go, the sacrifice lamb. It's written in the stars. And then what? Well, then he's Pisces, and the two fish, and we've had that fish on the back of car bumpers and all the idea, and fishers of men and so on. I built a giant aquarium in a church for people, and it had a nautical theme all around it, and then in ancient wood was carved out over it. I will make you fishers of men, right above the fish tank. Thought it was real cool the way that he set it up. I wasn't going to turn around and tell him, well, God's a joke. I was doing my job regardless, and I didn't want to turn around and try to, hey, in my pocket I got a couple of blue pills here. You know where that story comes from? Now we're in the sign of Aquarius, which actually is a receptacle of water and the age of water and so on like that too. So we're there, but also that's the end of the age. And is it actually happening? Can somebody come up with something new that anybody will believe that doesn't sound like some mythological weird crap? Hey, here's one for you. What if we were to go with what science has shown us and been correct all the way through it? Surely they learn something new every once in a while. They are also the ones that try to shun other things that don't fit with their narratives, but once you plug it in, you know, if you had a 1965 encyclopedia set and you looked up certain topics, there's a whole lot of more added onto those topics now. And in fact, in some of those cases, they don't even say these 3 paragraphs here because we know that's not even true anymore. So why even give people the option of being misled? Turn it into 1 paragraph and go, we used to think this, that, and the other, but because of da-da-da-da, then we never, therefore X equals Y and da-da-da, and we're good, and here's what we've learned since then. They don't need to put timelines in or anything like that or show you how much we've learned, but can you imagine that whenever I was a kid, phones were on a cord on the wall, and that was an advancement from the other type of phone from before and it got better and better and better, but then all of a sudden we started running cable TV and everything, and then somebody come up with the idea, you know, we can hook up something that puts out that much information and call it the internet. And with the internet, we've been able to grow as a humankind incredibly fast. But look at that phone that we have now. When I was a kid, Star Trek had a tricorder and it could do 3 things. Your phone now can do 11 or 12, and then with applications and so on, it gets endless. And it ends up being a byproduct now that you can call somebody on. It's like it's got a calculator and a calendar and this, that, and the other, da-da-da, and I get on the internet and I take pictures and video, better than expensive video cameras from just a few years back, but lo and behold, you know, I can also call people on it. Yeah, and text. Yeah, so that's pretty neat. But it's just a side product of it now. Isn't that amazing? Those amazing Caucasians keep taking it to another level, another level, another level. Meanwhile, all of this is going on. I think it's fantastic, but maybe you can realize that we're doing magic now. We're actually doing something that would have been magic. I can talk to somebody on the other side of the earth instantaneously, and they're talking back, everything's cool. If you hook it up right, I can talk to somebody on the space station. It's pretty incredible. We can fly now, go into space, do all kinds of incredible things. If that culture was going on in ancient times versus what we know, they would be the gods. People would start making up stories and saying, hey, they live on a mountain and up in space and they do these things and stuff. And, wow, that's a red pill, isn't it? I have a whole box over here I talked about recently in a video showing you a cave art that showed something that I can't get away from the fact of it looking like something between War of the Worlds and Close Encounters of the Third Kind situations going on there. That's just one little scrap out of the box. I had a couple people say, yeah, let's see some more. So I will not dedicate to it. I don't want anybody to think that I've lost my mind and all with space alien freakouts, because what I'm trying to show you is what humanity has done. But there are some indications that humanity has been visited, if not helped, in some way. And we either have to blame it on ourselves, some lost civilization that we can't find any remnant of, or something along the idea of a god, which might in fact actually just be an alien. In fact, I did a video back at Christmas time where if we took the idea of going near the speed of light for a certain period of time, this could actually be us coming back to visit ourselves, to check up on it, to whisper in somebody's ear, perhaps. All kinds of things could be going on, and we would be unaware of it, just like they talk about Roswell's alien crash and so on. Anyhow, I hope you keep enjoying blue pills. They're coming out in multi-flavor options. My current favorite is watermelon, which you would think is on the other side there, but it's not. That one now tastes like doo-doo if I try to consume it. Every time I try to even red pill myself a little bit towards a topic, too many things are going, oh, that's an agenda and bullshit. Not even in effect. Or are they making such a big deal out of it? What are they trying to belittle and take away from you that you're not able to see? It may have been something they only showed once on the news, if any at all, and during that time they tried to spout an agenda, and now they're going to try to ignore it. And oh, by the way, there's all these other things going on. Looky here, oh, looky here. And there's an agenda on those too. If you're new to the channel, or old to the channel, I'm going to keep putting out blue pills. You may not need another blue pill, but every once in a while, ceremoniously, let's take one, just so we're all high in the same way and everything, and collective off it. Call it a ceremony if you want to. It's the incredible sacrilegious ceremony of not. It seems to take so much away from humanity whenever we get deep into it. You go, this is a bunch of mythology and stuff. I thought it was real. Did you think unicorns and dragons were real? Did you have questions about that? Do you want to know who the unicorn was? Oh, it was the one-horned rhino versus the two-horned. It's Behemoth. Some of these ancient creatures were extremely powerful, and we overtook them in the age of man versus beast. Now we're a master of beasts what? Yeah, we domesticated animals, all kinds of things. This is a Caucasian thing. Leads us to the point, I've got these cats over here. They're my little buddies. Dogs, birds, horses, the cows we eat, the chickens and pigs. Oh wow, everything around you. And over time it was derived out of simpler things to more and more intricate that did one more thing, kind of like your phone. And now in humanity we have that phone of, oh my God, it holds all kinds of stuff. We're about there. And we are the pinnacle. They talk about, oh, you always think you're the pinnacle. Yeah, we are the pinnacle. Right now. But 10 years from now, we'll look back and be like, well, we used to have phones like that, but now we got it. So it's an ever-growing thing. If it keeps growing and people don't stoop it, I would say that if you looked at it on a graph, there would be this little hiccup going on right now with dumb, with a whole lot of excessive pandering and things that really aren't in effect, but they want you to think so, but they also don't want you to think of the things that are really in effect, because won't you eat a red pill? I think I'll stay where I am, rolling along and occasionally eating a blue pill to make sure I stay away from it on the other side. Let me know what you think down below, guys. I know it's just somewhat rambling concepts, blue pill, red pill, ooh, and things like that, but it means a lot in a modern day and every day that there has ever been of humanity. It means a lot. Peace.